The Grandview Estate stretched out below my office window like something from a fairy tale, its manicured gardens and marble terraces gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. From my corner office on the third floor of the estate's administrative building, I had a perfect view of the main ballroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, the infinity pool that seemed to spill into the Pacific Ocean, and the rose garden where countless brides had posed for their perfect wedding photos. It was the most exclusive event venue in Malibu, booked solid for 3 years in advance, with a waiting list that included Hollywood royalty, tech billionaires, and old money families who would pay anything for the privilege of hosting their celebrations in paradise. The venue that my parents had somehow managed to book for their 25th anniversary celebration. The same celebration I'd just learned about through a phone call that had left me feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My phone sat on my mahogany desk, the call with my mother still echoing in my mind like a bad dream. 3 weeks. They'd been planning this anniversary party for 3 weeks, had somehow secured the most coveted venue in Southern California, had sent invitations to family and friends across the country, and had forgotten to tell their own daughter. I picked up the phone and replayed the conversation in my mind, each word as sharp as broken glass. "Isabella, darling." Mom's voice had been artificially bright, the tone she used when she was hiding something. "How lovely to hear from you. What's the occasion?" "I was calling to see how you and Dad were doing," I'd said, completely unprepared for what was coming. "I was thinking we could have dinner this weekend, maybe catch up." "Oh, sweetheart, this weekend is impossible. We're absolutely swamped with anniversary preparations." Anniversary preparations? The pause had been telling, just long enough for me to realize that this was news to me when it shouldn't have been. "Didn't we tell you? Dad and I are throwing a big celebration for our 25th anniversary. Next Saturday at the Grandview Estate. It's going to be magical, 200 guests, live orchestra, 5-course dinner prepared by Chef Laurent himself." My blood had run cold. The Grandview Estate. My venue. The business I'd built from nothing into the most successful event planning empire on the West Coast. "That sounds wonderful," I'd managed. "I'd love to celebrate with you." Another pause, longer this time. "Oh, Isabella, I'm so sorry. We forgot to send your invitation. The guest list was finalized weeks ago and somehow you slipped through the cracks. You know how these things are, so many details to coordinate." The lie had been so transparent it was almost insulting. "You don't forget to invite your own daughter to your anniversary celebration. You make a conscious decision to exclude her." "I see," I'd said, my voice carefully neutral. "Besides, even if we could add you now, the venue is fully booked. The Grandview Estate is impossible to get into. We were incredibly lucky to secure a last-minute cancellation. There simply isn't room for additional guests." I'd looked out my office window at the venue in question, calculating the maximum capacity of each space. The main ballroom could accommodate 400 guests comfortably. The garden terrace could handle another 200. For a party of 200 people, they were using less than half the available space. "Of course," I'd said. "I understand completely. Maybe we can plan a nice family dinner after we get back from our post-anniversary vacation in France. Somewhere modest, nothing too expensive. We'll make it up to you, I promise." Somewhere modest. Nothing too expensive. Because of course their daughter couldn't afford anything else. Now, sitting in my office overlooking the venue where my parents were planning to celebrate a quarter-century of marriage without me, I felt the familiar burn of family disappointment mixed with something new, the power to do something about it. A soft knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, swiveling my chair away from the window. My assistant, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway with a tablet in her hand and an apologetic expression on her face. At 28, she was everything I'd been looking for when I hired her 3 years ago. Organized, discreet, and completely unflappable in the face of demanding clients and impossible requests. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I have Mrs. Martinez online too. She's asking about extending their booking for this Saturday's anniversary celebration. Something about adding additional decorations and possibly upgrading the menu to include caviar service." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. "Mrs. Martinez wants to extend their booking?" "Yes, she's quite insistent. She says money is no object and she wants this to be the celebration of a lifetime. Should I transfer the call to you?" "Actually," I said, reaching for my phone, "let me handle this personally." Jennifer nodded and disappeared back into the outer office. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone, preparing to have a conversation that would change everything. Mrs. Martinez? This is Isabella Reyes, the owner of Grandview Estate. I understand you'd like to discuss your upcoming celebration? Oh, Ms. Reyes. Thank you so much for taking my call personally. I know how exclusive your venue is, and I can't tell you how thrilled we are to be celebrating our anniversary there. The irony of using my mother's maiden name professionally wasn't lost on me. Isabella Reyes had built an empire while Isabella Martinez remained the family disappointment. I'm delighted to hear that, I said smoothly. What changes were you hoping to make to your event? Well, we're so excited about this celebration that we'd love to make it even more special. Perhaps upgrade to the premium bar package, add the caviar station, maybe extend the event by an hour or two. My husband and I have worked so hard for this milestone and we want it to be perfect. That sounds lovely. Before we discuss upgrades, though, I need to review your current booking to ensure we can accommodate the changes. I pulled up the Martinez file on my computer, scanning the details that my event planning team had meticulously documented. 200 guests, 5-course dinner, live orchestra, premium florals, valet parking, and a total cost that was approaching 6 figures. I see here that your guest list is currently at 200 people, I continued. Are you planning to add additional guests with these upgrades? Oh no, the guest list is finalized. We were very selective about who to include. Only our closest family and dearest friends. You know how important it is to celebrate these milestones with the people who truly matter. The words hit like a slap. The people who truly matter. Apparently, their daughter didn't make that list. Of course, I said, my voice remaining perfectly professional despite the anger building in my chest. Family is so important. I trust your daughter will be able to join you for this special celebration. The pause on the other end of the line was deafening. Our daughter. Mom's voice had changed, becoming slightly strained. Yes, I always like to ensure that immediate family members are included in these milestone celebrations. There's nothing quite like having your children present to witness such important moments. Well, unfortunately, our daughter won't be able to attend. She has other commitments that weekend. Very last-minute scheduling conflicts, you understand. The lie flowed so easily that I almost admired its smoothness. Other commitments. As if I was too busy serving coffee or whatever they imagined I did for work to attend my parents' anniversary celebration. How disappointing, I said. I'm sure she would have loved to be part of such a special occasion. Yes, well, these things happen. Young people today have such busy lives. Indeed they do. Speaking of busy lives, Mrs. Martinez, I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news about your booking. Oh, what kind of news? I looked out my window at the venue where florists were already beginning to set up for a rehearsal dinner scheduled for that evening. The Grandview Estate was a machine of perfect execution, every detail choreographed to create magical moments for families who could afford the privilege. I've been reviewing our policies regarding guest lists and final head counts, I said carefully. Unfortunately, we have strict guidelines about family inclusion for milestone celebrations. Family inclusion? Yes. Our insurance and liability policies require that immediate family members be included in anniversary celebrations of this magnitude. It's a safety and security measure. We need to account for all potential attendees to ensure proper staffing and emergency protocols. The explanation was complete fiction, but it sounded official enough to be believable. I don't understand, Mom said, her voice becoming tight with anxiety. What does this mean for our celebration? Well, unfortunately, if immediate family members are unable to attend due to scheduling conflicts, we're required to cancel the booking. It's a liability issue that our legal team insists upon. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I wondered if the call had been dropped. Cancel the booking? She finally whispered. I'm afraid so. Unless, of course, the scheduling conflicts can be resolved and your daughter can attend after all. But the deposits, the catering, the orchestra, everything is already arranged. I understand this is inconvenient, Mrs. Martinez. However, our policies are quite clear. Either all immediate family members attend, or we cannot proceed with the event. I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Mom covering the phone and frantically discussing something with Dad. When she came back on the line, her voice was shaking. Ms. Reyes, Surely there must be some way to work around this policy. We've already sent invitations, arranged travel for out-of-town guests, ordered flowers. This celebration means everything to us. I sympathize with your situation, I said, though my tone remained businesslike. However, our policies exist for very important legal reasons. I simply cannot approve an event that doesn't meet our family inclusion requirements. More muffled conversation then. What if we could arrange for our daughter to attend? Would that resolve the policy issue? If all immediate family members are present, then yes, we could proceed with your celebration as planned. But she's so busy with work. And honestly, she might feel out of place at such an elegant event. This isn't really her kind of thing. The comment stung more than I cared to admit. Not my kind of thing. Because of course I wasn't sophisticated enough to appreciate elegance and luxury. Mrs. Martinez, I said, my voice getting slightly cooler. What exactly is your daughter's profession? Oh, she works in event coordination. Very small-scale stuff, nothing like your operation. Mostly community events and local functions. Event coordination. They thought I planned bake sales and church fundraisers while I was actually running the most exclusive venue empire in Southern California. I see. And this event coordination work, is it successful enough to allow her to attend elegant celebrations? Well, I wouldn't say successful exactly. She makes enough to get by, but nothing extravagant. That's actually part of why we didn't invite her originally. We didn't want her to feel uncomfortable around our more accomplished guests. Accomplished guests. The hits just kept coming. How thoughtful of you, I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. It must be difficult having a daughter who isn't quite up to your social standards. It's not that she isn't up to our standards, Mom protested, though her tone suggested otherwise. It's just that she's still finding her way professionally. Some children take longer to reach their potential, you know? Indeed. Some children surprise their parents in ways they never expected. Exactly. We keep hoping she'll find something more substantial, but for now we work with what we have. Work with what we have. As if I was a disappointing consolation prize they had to tolerate rather than a daughter they'd chosen to exclude from their milestone celebration. Mrs. Martinez, I said, looking out at the venue where my parents planned to celebrate without me, I think I have a solution to your policy problem. Oh, thank goodness. What do you suggest? I'll waive the family inclusion requirement for your event. You will? Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. There is one small condition. Of course, anything. What do you need? I smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction that was probably unhealthy but undeniably sweet. I need you to personally call your daughter and explain why she wasn't invited to your anniversary celebration. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. I'm sorry, what? I need you to call your daughter right now while I'm on the line, and explain to her that she wasn't invited because you thought she wasn't accomplished enough to attend your celebration. Ms. Reyes, I don't understand why. Mrs. Martinez, these are my terms. Either you call your daughter and have an honest conversation about why you excluded her, or I cancel your booking immediately. But that's completely unreasonable. Is it? You excluded your own daughter from a family milestone because you thought she wasn't good enough. I'm simply asking you to be honest about that decision. More frantic background conversation, then Dad's voice came on the line. Ms. Reyes, this is Eduardo Martinez. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Our daughter wasn't excluded because of any inadequacy on her part. We simply thought she would be more comfortable with a smaller, more intimate celebration. The lie was smoother coming from Dad, but no less transparent. Mr. Martinez, I appreciate you joining the conversation. However, my policy remains the same. Either you have an honest conversation with your daughter about why she wasn't invited, or your booking is cancelled. This is extortion. This is business, Mr. Martinez. My venue, my rules. I could hear them arguing in the background, their voices rising with panic and frustration. Finally, Mom came back on the line. Ms. Reyes, what if we just uninvite some other guests and add our daughter to the list? Would that satisfy your requirements? Mrs. Martinez, your guest list isn't the issue. Your dishonesty is the issue. Our dishonesty? You told me your daughter had scheduling conflicts. You told me she wouldn't be comfortable at an elegant event. You told me she wasn't accomplished enough to fit in with your guests. None of that sounds like scheduling conflicts to me. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I could practically hear them scrambling for a response that wouldn't make the situation worse. "We were trying to be considerate," Mom said weakly. "Considerate of whom?" "Certainly not your daughter." "Look, Ms. Reyes, our family dynamics are complicated. You wouldn't understand." "Actually, Mrs. Martinez, I understand better than you think." Something in my tone must have registered because she went quiet. "What do you mean?" I looked out my window at the venue where my parents planned to celebrate 25 years of marriage without their daughter present. The irony was so complete it was almost artistic. "I mean that I understand what it's like to be underestimated by people who should know better. I still don't understand why you're making such a big deal about this. It's just one guest." "Just one guest. Mrs. Martinez, that one guest is your daughter. The person you raised, who shares your DNA, who should be standing beside you celebrating this milestone in your marriage. We can celebrate with her privately." "When? After you return from your vacation in France? At some modest restaurant because you assume she can't afford anything better." The sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line told me I'd hit the target. "How did you know about France?" "Lucky guess. The point is, you're celebrating 25 years of marriage, and you've decided your own daughter isn't worthy of witnessing that celebration. Do you have any idea how that might make her feel?" "We never meant to hurt her feelings." "But you did mean to exclude her." "There's a difference." The conversation was interrupted by Jennifer's voice over the intercom. "Ms. Reyes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Chef Laurent is here for your 4 p.m. menu tasting." "Thank you, Jennifer. Please have him wait in the main kitchen. I'll be down shortly." I returned my attention to the phone, where my parents were having another frantic whispered conference. "Mrs. Martinez, are you still there?" "Yes, we're here." "Ms. Reyes, what exactly do you want from us?" "I want you to be honest. With me, with yourselves, and with your daughter." "Honest about what?" "About why you really didn't invite her. About your assumptions regarding her success and social standing. About your disappointment in the person she's become." The words hung in the air like a challenge. I could hear my mother crying softly in the background. "We're not disappointed in her," Dad said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Aren't you? Your wife just told me that your daughter works in small-scale event coordination and isn't accomplished enough to feel comfortable around your guests. That sounds like disappointment to me. We wanted the celebration to be perfect." "Perfect for whom? For you? For your accomplished guests? What about what your daughter might want? She's never expressed interest in these kinds of events. Have you ever asked her? Have you ever included her in family celebrations at this level? Have you ever given her the chance to be interested?" The questions were hitting their mark. I could hear the defensive walls crumbling as they were forced to confront their own assumptions and behaviors. "Ms. Reyes," Mom said, her voice thick with tears, "what do you want us to do?" "I want you to call your daughter. Right now. I want you to apologize for excluding her and invite her to your anniversary celebration. And if we do that, you'll honor our booking? If you do that honestly without making excuses or trying to minimize your behavior, then yes. But what if she can't come? What if she really does have other commitments? Then that's her choice to make. But it should be her choice, not yours." I heard them conferring again, their voices too low to make out individual words. Finally, Dad came back on the line. "Ms. Reyes will call our daughter. But I want you to know that this feels like manipulation. Mr. Martinez, excluding your own daughter from your anniversary celebration because you think she's not successful enough. That's manipulation. What I'm doing is called consequences." "Fine. We'll make the call. While I'm on the line." "What?" "I want to hear this conversation. I want to ensure that you're being honest with her." "That's completely inappropriate. Mr. Martinez, your booking at my venue is hanging by a thread. These are my terms. Take them or leave them." Another whispered conference, then, "Fine. But this is the last demand we'll accept. We'll see." I heard the sound of a phone being dialed, then ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, a familiar voice answered. "Hello." My own voice, slightly distorted by the phone connection, filled my office. I was literally listening to my parents call me while sitting at my desk overlooking the venue where they planned to celebrate without me. "Isabella, sweetheart, it's Mom." "Hi, Mom. Is everything okay? You sound upset." "Well, actually, There's something we need to discuss about the anniversary celebration. Oh, did something happen with the venue? I almost laughed out loud at the question. Something had definitely happened with the venue. Not exactly. It's more about you. About me. Yes. You see, when we were planning this celebration, we made some assumptions about what you might want to do that weekend. What kind of assumptions? I could hear Mom struggling to find words that wouldn't sound as awful as the truth. Finally, Dad took the phone. Isabella, we didn't invite you to the anniversary party. The directness of the statement seemed to surprise even Mom, who I could hear making distressed sounds in the background. You didn't invite me? No. We assumed you wouldn't be interested in that kind of formal celebration. Why would you assume that? Another long pause. Because we thought you might feel out of place. Out of place how? Well, the guest list is mostly successful professionals, business leaders, people from our social circle. We thought you might feel uncomfortable. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I was listening to my parents explain to my face why they thought I wasn't good enough to attend their celebration. I see, my voice said through the phone. So you think I'm not successful enough to be around your friends? It's not that you're not successful, sweetheart. It's just that your career path is different from what most of our guests would expect. Different how? Well, event coordination it's honest work, but it's not exactly on the same level as law or medicine or business ownership. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. Event coordination. They only knew. So you excluded me from your anniversary celebration because you think my career is beneath your social standards? We didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? The silence stretched on until it became uncomfortable. We meant that we wanted you to be comfortable, Mom said finally. By excluding me completely? We thought it would be better for everyone. Better for everyone or better for you? Another painful silence. Isabella, Dad said, we realize now that we made a mistake. We'd like to invite you to the celebration. Now you'd like to invite me? After I called and found out about the party through accident? After you told me you'd forgotten to send my invitation? We're sorry about that. We were embarrassed about the oversight. Oversight. My voice through the phone was getting sharper. Dad, you don't forget to invite your own daughter to your anniversary party. You make a conscious decision to exclude her. You're right. We excluded you and we were wrong. The admission seemed to cost him something. I could hear Mom crying again in the background. Why? My voice asked. Why did you exclude me? Because we thought you'd be uncomfortable around our successful friends, Dad said, his voice barely audible. Because we were embarrassed about your career situation. Because we wanted the celebration to reflect well on our family's achievements. The honesty was brutal and complete. I listened to my father admit that he was embarrassed by his daughter's supposed lack of success. So you think I'm an embarrassment to the family? Not an embarrassment. Just, not the success story we'd hoped for. The words hit like physical blows. I watched through my office window as the events team continued setting up for the evening's rehearsal dinner, completely unaware of the family drama unfolding in the building above them. I see, my voice said through the phone. And now you want to invite me? Why the change of heart? Because we realize we were wrong, Mom said, taking the phone back. Because we love you regardless of your career situation. Because family should stick together. Regardless of my career situation? Yes. Your worth as a person isn't defined by your professional success. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Here were my parents, explaining to me that my professional success didn't define my worth, while sitting in the office of my multi-million-dollar business empire. That's very generous of you, my voice said dryly. Isabella, please, Dad said. We know we hurt you. We know we were wrong. Please give us a chance to make this right. How do you propose to make it right? By including you in our celebration. By treating you like the valued family member you are. By celebrating 25 years of marriage with both of our children present. I could hear the genuine regret in his voice, mixed with something that might have been panic about their venue booking. And my career situation? My voice asked. My embarrassing lack of success? We'll deal with it, Mom said. We'll introduce you to our friends and let them know how proud we are of you. Even though you're not? The question hung in the air like a sword. We are proud of you, Dad said finally. Maybe not in the way we expected to be, but we're proud of the person you've become. Just not proud enough to include me originally. We made a mistake. Big mistake. Please give us a chance to fix it. I listened to my parents beg for forgiveness through the phone while I sat in my office overlooking the venue they'd booked for their celebration. The situation was so surreal it felt like a dream. Ms. Reyes, Dad said, apparently addressing me directly, are you still on the line? I'm here, Mr. Martinez. Did that satisfy your requirements? Can we proceed with our booking? I looked out at the Grandview Estate with its perfect gardens and marble terraces and infinity pool that cost more to maintain than most people made in a year. Then I looked at my phone, where my parents had just finished explaining to their daughter why they thought she wasn't good enough to attend their celebration. Actually, Mr. Martinez, I have one more requirement. What now? I need to speak with your daughter directly. Why? Because I want to hear her response to your invitation. Ms. Reyes, this is getting ridiculous. Mr. Martinez, my venue, my rules. Put your daughter on speakerphone. I heard some fumbling with the phone, then my father's voice. Isabella, the venue owner wants to speak with you directly. Okay, my voice said through the connection. Hello, Ms. Reyes. Hello, Isabella. I've been listening to your parents' explanation of why you weren't originally invited to their anniversary celebration. How do you feel about their invitation now? There was a long pause before my voice responded. Honestly, I feel like they're only inviting me because you're forcing them to. Do you think that's accurate? I think they excluded me because they're embarrassed by what they think my life looks like. And now they're trying to fix it because they're afraid you'll cancel their booking. The assessment was perfectly accurate. I could hear my parents making distressed sounds in the background. That's not true, Mom protested. We genuinely want you there. Do you? My voice asked. Because an hour ago you told me you'd forgotten to send my invitation. You lied to my face about why I wasn't included. We were trying to spare your feelings. By lying to me? By not making you feel unwanted. But I was unwanted. You just admitted that you excluded me because you thought I'd embarrass you in front of your successful friends. The conversation was becoming increasingly painful to listen to, even though I was technically participating in it. Hearing my parents articulate their disappointment in me so clearly was harder than I'd expected. Isabella, Dad said, what can we do to make this right? I don't know, my voice replied. How do you fix 25 years of feeling like you're not good enough for your own family? 25 years? Mom gasped. It hasn't been 25 years. Hasn't it? Every family gathering where you apologize for my career choices. Every conversation where you explain that I'm still finding my way. Every celebration where you're embarrassed to introduce me to your friends. The accusations were hitting their mark. I could hear my parents struggling to find responses that didn't make the situation worse. We never meant to make you feel that way, Dad said weakly. But you did. And the anniversary party was just the most obvious example. Isabella, I said, addressing myself through the phone. What would it take for you to consider attending your parents' celebration? Another long pause. Honestly, I'd need to know that they actually want me there. Not because you're forcing them to invite me, but because they genuinely value having me as part of their family. And how would they demonstrate that? I don't know. Maybe by showing some interest in my actual life instead of making assumptions about it. The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge. Your actual life? Mom asked. What do you mean? I mean my real career, not what you think I do for work. My real achievements, not what you assume I've failed to accomplish. My real success, not the disappointment you think I've become. We know you work in event coordination. Do you know anything about the events I coordinate? The clients I work with? The scope of what I've built? The silence that followed was telling. No, Dad admitted. We don't. Then maybe you should ask. Maybe you should show some interest in your daughter's life before you decide whether she's successful enough to attend your celebrations. I smiled, finally ready to end this elaborate charade. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, I said, I think I've heard enough. Enough for what? Dad asked nervously. Enough to make my final decision about your booking. And I looked out my window at the venue where my parents wanted to celebrate 25 years of marriage. The same venue where they'd planned to exclude their daughter because they thought she wasn't successful enough to belong. Your booking is confirmed, I said finally. It is. Mom's relief was audible. Yes. However, there's one final condition. What now? I want to meet your daughter in person before the event. Why? Because I'm curious about this young woman who coordinates events but apparently isn't successful enough for her own family's celebration. I could hear my parents exchanging worried glances through the phone. When would you like to meet her? Dad asked carefully. How about right now? Right now. Is there a problem with that? Isabella, are you available to meet with Ms. Reyes this afternoon? My voice said through the phone. I suppose I could drive over there. Where should I meet you? I'll send you the address, I said. Come to the main office building. Ask for Isabella Reyes. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and laughed until tears streamed down my face. In 15 minutes, I was going to walk downstairs and introduce myself to my parents as their daughter. The same daughter they'd just spent an hour explaining wasn't successful enough to attend their anniversary party. The venue owner they'd been so desperate to please was the same daughter they'd excluded from their celebration. The successful businesswoman whose approval they needed was the same family disappointment they'd been apologizing for. And in about 20 minutes, they were going to realize that their daughter didn't coordinate community bake sales and church fundraisers. She owned the most exclusive event venue in Southern California. I walked to my window and looked down at the Grandview Estate one more time, imagining my parents' faces when they realized the truth. Then I headed for the door, ready to attend a family reunion that was about to change everything.